In the last episode I said, matter of fact, if you are stuck in car-centric denialism, go ahead and dislike the video. And if you believe that California actually deserves a better rail system that separates passenger and freight traffic, you already know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button. I'm trying to have the biggest ratio in urbanism YouTube history. I'll even show you the results next video. I'm glad to see that a lot of people believe in the equity of this project. And this is something that even Reese agreed with in his response. But I still have a lot of problems with his takes.
Please exit through the rear door.
Doors open.
Before I get into the video, let me lay down a copyright disclaimer. Okay, RoboRail.
Section 107 of the Copyright Act provides the statutory framework for determining whether something is a fair use and identifies certain types of uses such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, transformation, scholarship, and research as examples of activities that may qualify as fair use. As YouTube says, not all reuse is copyright infringement. Channel that transforms original content for commentary, criticism, or parody may be protected under the doctrine of fair use. The content on this YouTube channel, Banks Rail, is transformative in nature, therefore falls under fair use. Because of this, I ask that you not strike or claim this content.
This isn't even anything against RMTransit, it's actually the fact that I got claimed by Thomas the Tank Engine.
Thomas the Tank Engine.
What? It's here! It's here! Oh! Get on it! Oh, heck! Oh!
I mean, this was a while ago, but I still got PTSD from it. Alright, so now that that's over, let's get into the video.
I'm skeptical that these cities are going to generate as much ridership as, say, a smaller European city like Rennes. Now, Rennes is connected to the French TGV network, and it has only around half the population of Fresno, but it's more compact. And it has a metro system linking to the high-speed rail station that gets over 200,000 riders every single day.
Okay. Here goes my first problem with this video. Let's take the population of Rennes, which is at 215,000, and the city of Dallas has a population of 1.2 million. This is the city itself and not even including its metro area. The annual ridership for the Rennes Metro in 2019 was 37.17 million. The entire system-wide ridership for DART in Dallas, meaning all modes, was 36.1 million. Now I know I'm going to get some,
well, Banks Rail, you're strawmanning. You're cherry picking the information. You just pull numbers from 2019 for Rennes and then pull numbers from 2022 for Dallas. Obviously the numbers are lower because of the pandemic.
No, there's no way you heard the population number 200,000 and then heard the population 1.2 million and still think that the pandemic is going to have anything to do with having a lower ridership. But because I'm Banks Rail, you know I always have to be prepared for any denialism that comes my way. DART's per capita ridership was already garbage before the pandemic even happened. DART's light rail ridership, which consists of 4 lines, was only pulling around 30 million. In 2019, Rennes only had 1 metro line open, and the fact that Rennes' 1 metro line was pulling more ridership than all 4 Dallas light rail lines combined is really saying something. It's saying exactly what I said a couple episodes ago. Metro area means nothing. If your public transportation system is garbage, then it's going to negatively affect your high-speed rail system. But this series isn't about Texas Central, so let's go back to California. So you remember that 200,000 riders every single day that Reese was talking about? You know, the one for the Rennes Metro? The LA Metro's entire rail system gets less than that, at 177,000 per day. After looking at these pretty abysmal numbers, you can't tell me that American metro areas have as much relevance as other countries with high-speed rail right now.
Hey, SNCF's plan has some good elements to it, doesn't it? Maybe we could change the government's mandates, but still meet the objectives behind those mandates so that we could use a less expensive plan while still getting out of the project what we want to get out of it. One such topic is how the Central Valley cities are served. If all trains need to run through the Central Valley cities, the main line needs to be in one location. But if you serve them on branches or with shuttles in some cases, then the main line could be in a different location. And this is not an uncommon way to serve cities on rail transportation systems. Look at the Mini Shinkansen or the Hokuriku Shinkansen, for example.
Okay, so there are a couple parts wrong with this section of the video. Reese fails to mention the fact that both of those Shinkansen branch lines were already passenger rail lines before the Shinkansen was built. Japan already had a robust passenger rail network. This is something that does not exist in California, so it would be more difficult implementing it. But just because it's more difficult doesn't mean that the California High-Speed Rail Authority isn't already planning on doing that. This is the whole point of the Cross Valley Corridor, and I'm not going to go over the Cross Valley Corridor again. You can just watch this video up here. Make sure you finish this video first though. On top of that, look at the branch transfer station locations for Japan. They're all located in densely populated, already established cities. There are literally no cities located along the I-5 corridor. I swear, every single time I see a plan like this, I feel like I have to scoop my last remaining brain cells off the floor. There's no way we can be transit and urbanist YouTubers and be this geographically challenged. But let's go back a little bit. The first point that he brought up was changing the government's mandate, which I assume he means Proposition 1A. Changing Proposition 1A would require Californians to re-vote on the proposition. Proposition 1A barely got passed the first time around, and with all this negative propaganda around the high-speed rail project, I doubt it would get passed the second time around. In fact, this is exactly what happened to Florida High-Speed Rail. The state of Florida re-looked into the feasibility of their high-speed rail system when it was beginning construction. They decided to tweak a few things, but when they did, Floridians had to re-vote for the project. And with all the negative propaganda floating around the project, Floridians ended up shutting the project down.
Now, I've heard the argument that we should probably be okay with budget overruns, because even the original high-speed rail line, the Tokaido Shinkansen between Osaka and Tokyo, was over budget. But this argument doesn't make sense if the budget for that project was quite low, and it was. The Tokaido Shinkansen still cost substantially less than California high-speed rail, and this was as they were literally inventing the high-speed rail concept as they were going along. At the same time, the project was finished in just about 5 years for the Tokyo 1964 Olympic Games. It wasn't a long project, and it wasn't all that expensive.
Well, there's actually a reason for why it wasn't all that expensive. Yes, Japan was literally inventing the high-speed rail concept, but this was back in 1959. The Clean Water Act in America wasn't even officialized yet. And to further that point, there were laws in place in America that prevented people like me from even drinking out the same water fountain as others at that point. What I'm saying is, policies have changed in the last 60 years. There are a lot less things that are environmentally and socially acceptable now, and this goes for around the world. Their cost overrun back then, which might not seem like a big deal for us now, was actually a huge deal for them because they didn't have the same type of social and environmental barriers that we have now. Also known as, you can't go bulldozing through a low-income community the same way that you could 60 years ago. I thought that would be obvious, but I guess not.
All of this means that I think the approach taken with the Central Valley is extremely risky.
The thing is, no matter how you slice this project, no matter how you slice any high-speed rail project, it's always going to be risky. Now, there are more talking points that I would like to talk about from his video. There's this myth floating around that SNCF abandoned California high-speed rail. Technically, this is not true. A company, which SNCF just so happens to be the largest shareholder, is designing the Madera to Merced section. This is the reason why I wasn't able to show you guys the Madera station last video. Alright, so let's now look at the Madera station rendering. Okay. On top of that, a lot of people, him included, failed to see the amount of projects that California High-Speed Rail is actually funding. Majority of the projects listed here are actually in Southern California, so only mentioning CalMod isn't really the full picture. And this is why it would be catastrophic to re-vote for Proposition 1A. Re-voting for Proposition 1A and that proposition not passing would mean that none of these projects would get funding anymore. To end this off, I think my main problem with this entire video and the video before that is the fact that Reese is praising a project that's basically being held on life support by Amtrak out of all companies. Amtrak. I feel like the blue fish from SpongeBob.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
If Amtrak is ever offering to take up a passenger rail line, which they have been trying to do for the past 2 years with Texas Central, it means that that rail line is practically dead. Auto train. Alright, so we're back at Merced Station. Apparently, the high-speed rail trains will actually share the platforms with the San Joaquin service. The platform that you see at the lower level is actually for Ace Rail. I'm not sure why the artist rendering didn't show the track ramp up to the station for the San Joaquin service, but artist renderings aren't always accurate, are they? From Merced, we go back down south to the Central Valley Y. After the Central Valley segment is completed, the authority will be working on the Silicon Valley segment next. I'm not gonna lie, this segment gives me nightmares. This segment is probably the most geographically and environmentally challenging segment. In one part, the trains will be riding on top of a viaduct in a tunnel. I can tell that at this point the authority was doing anything to make the environmentalists happy. And not to mention the 13-mile long tunnel that trains will have to travel through. And let's get a 1.6-mile tunnel right after that. I'm not going to go into detail about the specification of these tunnels for earthquake proofing. I already made a video on that. You can go check that out. It's right here. But my largest fear about this section is the anti-high-speed rail propaganda. It turns out it's a lot easier to spread negative propaganda about a project that you can't actually see. And with the majority of this section being constructed inside of a tunnel, yeah, this is going to be bad. Being from New York, most of our rail projects tend to be in tunnels. And oftentimes this makes it difficult to gauge how far along or how not far along a project actually is. In short, tunnels make it easier for the main media to downplay the value or the actual progress of projects. And we can see this with the Central Valley, a project that's actually being built in front of our eyes. So when people say, why wasn't it built from San Jose to Merced? Or why wasn't it built from Bakersfield to Burbank? This is the reason why. Tunnels are not only extremely expensive, but it also makes it easier for the public to be disillusioned by what they're actually spending the money on. Alright, so here's Gilroy. This is where the future high-speed rail station will be located. In the future, this station will serve Caltrain and high-speed rail. Just like Merced, this station is going to be a huge transportation hub. But unlike Merced, this station is going to be completely at grade. From Gilroy, high-speed rail trains will be running in mixed traffic to San Jose. This means that there's going to be a maximum speed of 110 miles per hour on this line. This also means that everything you see on Google Maps is pretty much what you're going to get, except the route will be completely double-tracked. Of course, it will also be electrified. This means that Caltrain can offer EMU service all the way to Gilroy. There are no plans to electrify the Salinas extension, but we don't have to get into that right now. Anyways, welcome to San Jose. We'll pick up here next episode. And before anybody gets in the comments, I really think that Reese makes some good content. But both his video on Texas Central and California High-Speed Rail show a lack of understanding about this project. It's okay to criticize California High-Speed Rail, but if we're going to do so, we have to make sure that we do some actual research first, especially if we're going to be broadcasting to tens of thousands of people. Because in my eyes, those statements were more about being edgy than actual criticism. Not saying that that's what happened in those videos, but that's what it seemed like. Yeah, this video is getting long, so if I earned your like and subscription, I love you, and if you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching.
Doors open.